Well, after Joe Biden's horrible press conference on Thursday evening, right when the Tucker Carlson Vladimir Putin interview dropped, people are starting to wonder, and we're seeing a lot of movement on Biden possibly dropping out, being removed, what have you. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that people have been thinking Biden's going to drop out or get removed for a while now. Of course, just based off of his age. And at this point, you do have to wonder if you're a Democrat, realistically seeing this dude talk and thinking, oh yeah, he's going to make it to 2028 if he somehow wins in 2024, it's just ridiculous. I think there's a lot of motivating factors for the Democrats to remove Biden. And right now, it just comes down to, in terms of what is the best political strategy when it comes to the perfect time to remove Biden and deploy possibly Michelle Obama. Now, we've seen some interesting things because it seemed like for the longest time, Gavin Newsom was going to be next up, jumping Kamala Harris and leaping to be the Democratic nominee in 2024. But I don't think that's necessarily possible because of how obsessed Democrats are with race and sex. Would they really jump Kamala Harris, a minority female, for Gavin Newsom, a white male? I highly doubt that. That's why I think it would likely be Michelle Obama. Now, there's still a speculation. Maybe Michelle Obama doesn't want to be the president. She doesn't want to be a candidate considering she was already there for 8 years. But just looking at this, will Joe Biden drop out of the presidential race? We've seen a steep increase. You can see up to a 28% chance. That's not crazy high, but that is pretty ridiculous. Will Joe Biden drop out? The odds have increased from 19 to 28 overnight after his press conference. Crypto bettors see Joe Biden's chances of dropping out of the presidential race surge to 30%. Traders have also boosted the odds for Michelle Obama, who a lot of people think would be put in his place if he does drop out. And certainly we can argue the dynamic within the Democratic Party. Does Joe Biden really have any say in this matter? I would say and speculate no. I think Joe Biden would love to drop out and be put out of his misery. The guy can barely form sentences. I think he's probably wondering and asking the Democratic establishment, at what point are you going to allow me to, like, this is ridiculous. Mentally, he's so gone to where if you went to an old folks home, he would be one of the loons at the old folks home. That's how bad it's gotten with Biden. And I think he realized it. And it's just like, put me out of my misery at this point. I can't talk. I don't know what you want from me. It is a very sad situation. And you certainly have to wonder, if the Democrats had a better VP, would Biden already be out? And this is the big issue. Kamala Harris, the unfavorable ratings for her, minus 19. Now, there's not a ton of polls on it, but Kamala Harris has consistently polled in terms of approval rating worse than Joe Biden, who right now is the most unlikable president in history. If you just talk about approval rating, I'm not saying that's the best metric to use, but that is a fact. And Kamala Harris is even worse. So removing Biden to put in Kamala Harris makes no sense because you pretty much lose the incumbent advantage. And on top of that, Kamala Harris is more disliked than Biden. And this whole issue for the Democrats goes back to them nominating Biden in the first place. And the whole idea is, for the Democratic Party in the year 2020, if you're going to nominate a white male, you damn better be sure the vice president is a minority female. That's what I think went into this. I think Kamala Harris was 1000% a quota decision by the Democrats, and now they're regretting it heavily because they really do have a Kamala Harris problem where it's like, can you really jump Kamala Harris with Gavin Newsom? That's not going to look good in terms of optics. So it seems like at this point, I think it's still going to be Biden. You could say Michelle Obama. Like, ideally, if you're the Democrats, who has a better chance of winning the election? I mean, we haven't seen any polls with Michelle Obama, but it's kind of hard to poll worse than Biden. And people are also obsessed with the Obamas. They probably want a dynasty. I think the whole thing's ridiculous. But in general, it's very hard to poll worse than how Biden is currently polling, unless you're Kamala Harris, who somehow, even with limited polling data, is polling worse. You can see Biden favorability sitting right now around minus 15, so a little bit better than Harris. Donald Trump's at around minus 13, which is pretty crazy considering how alienating Trump can be, especially when it comes to the media and what they think of Trump, the idea that Trump is performing better than Biden in terms of favorability. Also, you have to consider when it comes to going out and voting, this is why I think Trump's got a major advantage in a state like Georgia. There's just not a lot of motivation. You know, people that really don't care much about politics, but they were still able to ballot harvest them in the big cities like in Fulton County, DeKalb County, and Georgia. I'm not seeing the motivation, and obviously Biden's entire campaign, they've already started it. It's not about Biden's accomplishments, it's about Donald Trump being some type of fascist and the idea that Trump, if he becomes president, he's going to remain in power after 2028, which is another just completely ridiculous statement considering Trump left office in 2020 already once, even telling his supporters who were at the Capitol, no, you need to leave and be peaceful, but Twitter deletes that video and then blames Trump for inciting January 6th. It is just crazy. But either way, when it comes to this situation with Kamala Harris, with Biden, if I were the Democrats, if you're asking me to choose between those two, I would have to stay with Biden. Now, I don't know how bad Biden actually is mentally. That press conference that he did was horrible. He could not form sentences. He could barely talk. Is it a situation where maybe if they really give him a crazy drug cocktail, he'll perform better during the debates? To be honest, he did do all right during the State of the Union, but that was a while ago. So I just wonder, how compromised is he? And at this point, I was looking at all the major polls. Who do you trust more in terms of their health? Back in 2020, the poll was Trump +3. Now it's Trump +30. It's all completely outrageous. So if you're the Democrats, really the only thing you can hope for is some type of fear-mongering against Trump. Maybe Trump gets some crazy charges against him in that racketeering case. I don't think anything's going to come of the January 6th case unless there's new information. Trump is literally on video, a video that Twitter deleted, telling supporters to go home. If Trump's this terrible fascist, why wouldn't he tell supporters to try and take over the Capitol? Trump didn't do it. So it's all fairy tales, and the only thing they could possibly get Trump for, I think, is the Georgia trying to overturn an election by using possibly an abuse of power. But either way, they're trying to go at that angle and say, oh, Trump's got all these charges, all the federal charges. Of course, we know it's all ridiculous. These are all Democratic judges. Why would anyone believe a judge that's going to be biased against Trump and has a track record of hating on Trump? But they're hoping that the independent people will look at this and say, and I've talked to people that say, well, Trump's got all these charges, it's terrible, it's bad. That's what they're hoping, and maybe what would happen, you know, if it comes to a point where Trump is charged seriously, the Republican establishment could try to band against Trump. We realize the only reason Nikki Haley is in the race is because of the potential charges against Trump. It's ridiculous. I'm sure she's embarrassed to even be in, but she's trying to just siphon a few delegates, you know, in many of these states, finish in second place, and then if something really bad happens to Trump, she can say, oh, look at me, I'm in second place in terms of the delegate count. That means I must be the Republican nominee if Trump is proven to be disqualified or something crazy happens. And then also you would think Trump might try and still run, which would be an absolute disaster for the Republicans because it would split the vote between Trump and Nikki Haley, and obviously the Democrats would all be voting for Biden or for whoever. But this entire Biden situation is just so ridiculous. I do think the number one problem right now is Kamala Harris. I'm guessing if Gavin Newsom was Biden's VP, he would already be the nominee. Biden would have stepped down. I mean, just imagine, like, the Democrats have this get out of jail free card where they can just have Biden step down at any time and everyone would be like, yeah, that makes sense. The guy is clearly mentally not capable for the job, but there's no one to replace him because you're not replacing him with Kamala because she's even more unlikable, and that is so rare for a VP to be more unlikable than the president. Normally, the president gets more hate. If you look at Trump and Pence, it's the exact same thing. Pence was a lot more liked than Trump. That's just because the president is going to get more headlines and people are going to dislike him more. So they're really stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. I can understand people saying maybe the left is going to go with Michelle Obama, but that's just speculation at this point. We've heard no actual legitimate stuff to prove that that's true on if Michelle Obama actually wants to run. Either way, that would certainly change things. But right now, with Joe Biden running where we are today, it does seem likely. You look at any of the betting data, Trump's got about a 65% chance to win based on the polls. I would say it's even higher if you look at the popular vote with Trump up in the popular vote. It's so rare for a conservative this day and age because of the massive population centers in New York and California. It is very rare for a conservative to win the popular vote. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.